Before I go into what I will probably share briefly this morning, let me start first of all by thanking you. And since I always say things as they are, and I am ready to be accountable for the things I say, for this simple reason. I have had countless discussions, even in my present responsibility as Cabinet Secretary for Education, with many other of our colleagues in the university sector. Universities are supposed to be the avenues through which we exchange ideas, where we come to learn, where we come to engage. And universities are the intersection where engagements happen, marketplace for ideas. There are many times we have missed, national moments in the country, when things happen and you feel we should gather together a team of researchers, academicians, and thinkers to begin, reviewing some of the things that we are doing. And let me disabuse you of this notion. There's a belief that people have that government always knows. It's not true. Government doesn't know in most cases. And government that knows is government that engages and listens to others. The more conversation you have, the more likely it is that you will have better ideas as you move forward. And I can make this confession with about nearly 5 years under my belt as a cabinet minister. The reason why many African governments are not doing well is because they are managed with that attitude that we know. They never engage in conversations. And the reason why many players in the north, for example, do better is because people constantly converse, constantly engage. People believe that you have good ideas, but there's always room for more good ideas, as it were, as you move forward. So I sincerely want to encourage you, Dean, this is the way we need to go. And I pray that as many of my colleagues in cabinet as possible find an opportunity to stand here and get new ideas, answer questions, and get to know much more than we are likely to know by just spending time with our colleagues in government offices, as it were. And I pray that we become a community of conversing people who are constantly in search of new knowledge and new ideas as we go along. That's how we are going to do better. And therefore, what you're doing is wonderful, really. And frankly speaking, for colleagues like Mwenda, who have just come straight from a teaching stint in the US and the rest, this is really the way we are supposed to operate, where we come here and engage, and let's have as many conversations as we can on all the things we are doing, whether it's on education and stuff like that. Long time ago, well, not quite long time ago, but anyway, some time ago, a few people in the room may relate to this. There was a broadcasting house in this country called VOK. VOK, some people in the room may not have lived when VOK was here. VOK is Voice of Kenya. And it was a government-owned station, managed by government and operated by government. There was a time when there was a newspaper called Kenya Times. Some of you may not have known about it, but Kenya Times existed. And actually somebody joked one day that they went to a minister's office at that time when Kenya Times existed, and there was a copy of Kenya Times on the desk of the minister, and it was stamped confidential. It was Kenya Times, which in most cases spoke about government stuff, but even then it was meant to be confidential. Anyway, the point I want to make is that VOK used to run a program called Dunia Wiki Hii. Some of you can relate to it. Dunia Wiki Hii, the world this week. I think the world became too complex and too complicated, so broadcasting houses stopped talking about the world. So this week, I was looking at the raging debate in the papers on mass failures, the Kenya School of Law. That actually of the candidates who got out of our law classes in our universities and went to the Kenya School of Law, not even 20% managed to pass to go out and practice. Then I reflected on how I was being roasted last December after I released the KCSE results, with some religious people saying the exam was marked in a hurry. That is why we have mass failures. Then I thought, maybe the Kenyan School of Law people also mark exams in a hurry. Then the other day we looked at the figures and the passes in the teacher training institutions in our country. And the harrowing experience of having about half or more of those who are training to be teachers, who are going to teach our children, failing. And then we find a way of absorbing them. And then for some reason, we imagine that after they have failed, they will now shape our children very well. And our children will come out with flying colors, going through the hands of those who have failed. My first statement this morning is that we are reforming the curriculum of our education in the country because now is the time to change. We have lived the wrong way in terms of providing education in our country. And the unfortunate situation about it is that we have been in denial about it. And I'll make another confession. I think for those of us in the policy community, time is here for us to admit that we lost close to 2 decades of poor planning, very low level policy discussions, and therefore our planning for our education was at variance with our development needs and the growth of our country. Because one thing I keep asking myself every day is that when we sat down and developed Vision 2030, we should have actually spent even much more time asking and answering the question, what kind of education would we need and what skills would we need to achieve Vision 2030? Because had we done that, we will not be having a situation in our universities today where 80% of our undergraduate students in the universities are in the liberal arts and the humanities. And we want to be an industrialized country. So the beginning of this is that we are reforming the curriculum because we have looked at our development and we are answering the question of our needs. We want education, we want training, we want preparation of our children to be responsive to our development needs and to the growth of our country, so that we are essentially taking through our young people, who are our greatest resource, through a school system that is going to produce the manpower that this country and the globe needs for development. We have not been doing that. There are many other issues that you could actually address in that respect. Those issues include the soft issues. For example, when at independence, I keep asking colleagues every time, at independence, what were the objectives of our education system? One of them was that education was intended to lead us to national integration. Are we integrated as a country? Why do we have village universities where villagers come and tell us that for someone to be appointed vice chancellor, the first qualification is that they must come from that tribe. Anything else follows thereafter. You must come from that tribe where the university is based. Are we integrated as a community? And actually, if you went down the objectives of our education at independence, immediately we became independent in 1963. The focus was we are developing manpower to take over our economy from the colonialists so that we can develop our country. But truth be told, we ended up with an education that was producing officers to inherit the colonial government from the colonialists. So we began an education system that would produce officers, that would produce clerical staff, that would produce black Kenyan masters and bosses, as it were. That ideology has moved with us for a long time. That's why people are dying to go to the university and get a degree no matter what. And even if they actually probably do not know what they are going to do with the degree, as long as they put on a gown, they attend a graduation ceremony, they have a party, and they bring people from their village with matatus and leaves. Without even pausing to say, okay, What is this going to do to me in the long run? So we are also reforming the curriculum because our ideology of education must change with the time. We are not equipping ourselves to be officers. We are not, the country does not need officers. Our economy does not need bosses. Our economy needs skilled people who are productive enough. In fact, my colleague Joe Musheru told me something the other day when we were having a discussion on Ajira, the digital online jobs program. He said, you know, for a moment, Fred, do you know the world is looking for skills. We're looking for skilled people who can add value, who can do things. So private sector companies in India can hire Kenyan ICT graduates or Kenyan kids in ICT based in Westlands to do a lot of back-end work for them, and they'll make money because the world is looking for skilled people who can add value to the economies. When the Minister for Migration for Canada was here the other day and we were having a discussion, and he was saying the reason why some governments and countries in the north, like in Canada, are opening up for migration, and if you notice very clearly, when they open up for migration and for those who are moving, they're looking for skilled people. Because they say the economies are growing and they're looking for manpower to support their economies. That is why if you are a trained nurse, you're almost guaranteed, because people are looking for those who are going to participate in the economy. So we are reforming the curriculum because the ideology of our education must change and be responsive to where we are moving to. So we are talking about skills, you're looking for competencies. That's why our new proposed curriculum is a competence-based curriculum. We want people to train to acquire skills. We want people to develop their talents. And our education curriculum is going to open up pathways so that you can be a very gifted athlete. We help you to further that talent, and it becomes a skill, and you can earn from it, and it can contribute to community, as it were. I wonder, with the challenges we have of unemployment in our country, and in most of sub-Saharan Africa, how is it that we are not exporting manpower as rapidly as Philippines is doing? Many of you have gone to the Middle East. You see the number of Filipino workers in the Middle East. That's where the economy is growing. And they're exporting manpower because they have identified the skills that are needed by the global economy, and therefore training in those areas to be able to supply the global economy. So we're changing the curriculum because of that. And we are reforming the curriculum so that we emphasize more on competencies. We are reducing the emphasis on a too academic program. And you see, the reason why our education system has been almost crazy about the exams is because it's too intellectual, it's too academic. That's why we drill kids, we make sure they don't even have a break, they have got to go to school during the holidays, they have to carry 25 textbooks around, and then they have got to get the A's, and we take a decision that if they don't have the A's, then they are worth nothing, as it were. We are changing the curriculum to redefine the worth of the children and the human resource that we have within our society, as it were. And therefore, that's why we are emphasizing more on a competence-based curriculum. I know that the debate has been so much about C+ and above and going to university. And so, you know, we have been excoriated for not manufacturing enough students for the universities. Because say, oh, what is going to happen now to the universities? This Matiang'I man now is messing up our business completely. There won't be enough students to the universities. You hear such silly things. There will not be enough students for the universities. It's as though our education system is supposed to manufacture enough students for the universities, as it were. That's not the case. We are working very hard, and if you look at the way we have structured this, the emphasis really is to provide an opportunity to grow multiple skills on multiple frameworks. Because if this is what we are thinking, We are not going to be asked questions about whether or not we have manufactured enough students for the universities. It is a question of, have we developed enough skills for our needs? Because I would rather somebody asked me that question, and I would say I am guilty as charged. Our education system hasn't actually produced enough skills for the needs of our development, but not whether or not we have manufactured enough students for our universities, as it were. Because let me ask you guys, and you people know this for sure. I mean, we are importing welders. You know, we're importing welders. It's a fact of life. Everyone knows that. We're importing welders. I acted briefly at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. One challenge as we move towards, and that's why the president has been pushing us so much in Tibet, is because as we think about 1 million houses, we also think about plumbers and artisans, whom we don't have. We don't have enough of those. So ask us, have we manufactured enough, of those people who are going to be responsible and important for our environment? Not have we manufactured enough students for our universities, so that an array of all these skills that are available and that could be acquired as we train our children are availed to them. We acquire the competencies that we need for our development. Two more things I want to say on the case for reforming our curriculum. And I won't worry so much about the nuts and bolts about, we have now done the pilot and we're doing a pilot for a whole year to do this. Everything that must be done has been done. I can confirm to you, we started this in 2012. We're collecting data and working on this. We've had meetings. The unfortunate thing about our country also is that we love talking and meetings. You know, benchmarking trips, I'm told they are called, travel around, meet again and again, meet some more time to revise the thing, so that we get allowances, we go to hotels, and so on and so forth. We waste so much time. I think the process of reforming our curriculum has benefited greatly from a cross-section of Kenyan expertise, and Sarah would even talk some more about it. But I can tell you this, my brothers and sisters, we aren't there yet. We haven't come up with the perfect education system that we want. That's why we are using a participatory method as we go along. We want to constantly engage, we want to constantly talk and ensure that we have done the right thing as we go along. So I want to spend time on this so that we clearly understand one another. This is what we are focusing on in the new education system. We are proposing that we group or we categorize education basically in 3 main categories: early years education, middle school education, and senior school, tertiary, and university as we go along. And the progression is not contrived, it's not collapsed, that all of us must pass through that pipeline. Standard 1, 2, or standard 8, you must pass, go to Form 1. And if you have not passed to go to Form 1, you are Butere Kabisa. Then we go to Form 4, and you must get an A. If you don't have an A, you are finished. We are providing an opportunity so that you can branch off to vocational training and vocational skills as you go along, to pursue your talents and to pursue your gifts. And you could well find that you are wasting so much time staying on the academic track when you are fine going to acquire your skills and move on with life and contribute. There are people at the age of as early as 15, 16, 17 have ideas, have talents, have capacities to not only earn a living but contribute significantly to society. We want an education system that is flexible enough to provide that opportunity as we go along. And it's important for us to understand one thing, that as we go through this, the 3 critical pathways that we are looking at, arts, sports, science, social sciences, STEM, we can develop industries in the performing arts in this country. There are people at an age who can actually go into this, and it means a lot to them. And they can not only earn a living, but contribute significantly to society as we move forward. In sum, if you look at the design that we have adopted and the curriculum we are proposing, we want to free ourselves from the tyranny of intellectualism and a too academic, examination-oriented system of education. Because that hasn't worked well for us, that has not produced the skills that we need. But most importantly also, my friends, that is not responsive enough to our development needs and to the needs of the world in which we live as we go forward. So I welcome you to discuss this, to debate this as we go along. Our Institute for Curriculum Development has got a huge reservoir of expertise. A huge number of people who are conducting research, curriculum experts, and people are working on this and looking at how we can best ensure that our schools are truly learning environments. We are not taking everyone to school to drill them to be an officer in the long run, or to be a white-collar employee, as it were. I want to say two things before I take my seat. One, throughout our country, I don't know whether you see this, I see it, and I believe we have all experienced it as we go along. Many of our people, very educated people and so on, why do we have highly educated people, or so we think, practicing tribalism? Those ones who say our man must be the vice chancellor, they include PhD holders. That is it. I want to be a sincere public servant and tell you this. We have a serious problem of ethnicity in our universities, public universities. The country, serious problem. Some public universities can hold a fully fledged faculty meeting in one ethnic language. And those are holders of degrees. They hold master's degrees, PhDs, and so on. The point is that when it comes to values and ethical living, our education system, as currently designed, has actually not been very successful. We haven't brought out the best of us in terms of not just enhancing integration, but in sticking to and living a value-based and ethical life. Because I will not ask George's ethnic background before I hire him if I'm interested in results. Because if I'm interested in results, I'll have criteria. The people who can work for us and who can produce the results that we want. That's who we are looking for. Not a particular person from a particular tribe. You have seen the madness that is going on in the country after we started moving school principals around. Last week, a serving senator, and he is an educated person, came to see me, to plead with me, to tell me, yes, look, we can do anything, but please remove that headmaster from there. We want, you must find a way. We can. That is our school, We built it, we raised money. Do you know even the people of our church raised money? So I asked, that's a Kenyan who has come to do a very simple professional work, be a principal. And you want them to be moved out, not because they have hardly been there a month, so you can't even charge them on the basis of their performance. They have been there for only 2 weeks. But you are giving all manner of excuses because you are hiding behind your primitive ethnic instincts, that you are interested in someone from your ethnic community. So that's why our new curriculum is going to also emphasize more on values, nationalism, integration, fairness, objectivity, whether or not we are training responsible people who actually value their country, value their environment. And recently we have been having debates about at what stage in the school system do we want to expose our children to environmental awareness, so that they are aware of their environment, they need to protect the environment, it's their responsibility to protect the environment. And of course, the whole rigmarole of the value system as we go along. My brothers and sisters, in Kenya, we need this, honestly, we need this very seriously. There are times when people say things that shock you. When I worked for SUNY, and this is my last story, and we were supporting Parliament, we took a group of Kenyan members of Parliament to the US Congress to learn, because parliamentary vetting and approval had just been accepted. So we thought, because the US has been doing this over the years, it's important we take them to Congress so that they can interact with the confirmation hearings, because that's what they call them in the US, confirmation hearings process in the US Congress, so that they know how they are done and so on and so forth. And we even advised Parliament to develop a manual for vetting, because when people come before you for vetting, don't ask them their blood group, their ethnic community, how many wives they have, and so on and so forth. You know, stick to certain things because you are vetting them. Suitability for office does not include your ethnic community, and so on. So anyway, I was in this group of Kenyan members of Parliament then. I think it's the Parliament before the last. And I was so embarrassed. I mean, the Kenyans who were in the room, we got into a room, somebody said something, then they started quarreling among themselves. You know, and the quarrel took a party divide. Soon it took an ethnic divide, and so on. So at some point we had to speak in Kiswahili so that we are not heard by other people. Hey, tafadhali, tusiaibishane hapa. Tungoje tu tusikize hawa wazungu, tukimalizana na hawa wazungu, tutarudi pale Nairobi, alafu tuende kunyoroshana vile tutataka. Lakini sasa hapa tunaleta aibu, tafadhali tuweni wangwana hivi kidogo, alafu namna hiyo. Let's say something about our value systems. And yet, by the way, many of you, Professor Chacha and all these guys, all of you have interacted with the environment in the north. You will have a visit by the US congressional delegation when they arrive in Nairobi. Unless you're very keen and you know them, you will not know who is Democrat and who is Republican. Because there must be a point at which country is the focus of all of us, and our ethnicity and parties take a back seat. I don't know about you, but I get very concerned myself about some of these things, because you see, and then we argue about issues, and soon they move away from being issues about the points we are talking about. They become ethnic issues, they become party things. We mix everything in the process. And in that process, you ask questions about patriotism, you ask questions about whether or not we love our country. There are things we do to our country that people will not do to their country. There must be a time when all of us must know and believe Kenya is our country. This is our only home on earth. And regardless of what I feel about you or what you think about me, there must be a time when we must be one team and bat for country, as it were. So all this is what we are hoping we will achieve in the new curriculum. The last question, last point I want to leave with all of us is this. Until we define, this is my thesis, and actually it's backed by studies that have been done, until we answer the question, what is our education for? We will not get the right curriculum. Until we answer that question, what is our education for? We will not get the right curriculum. I believe that we began very far. We've asked this question before, and we've now come to this conclusion after the experience we've had over half a century as an independent country. We have come to this conclusion that our education must be for national development. It must be for enhancing integration. It must be for producing relevant, responsive citizens. It must be for responding to our development needs as we go forward. And once we list those answers, they all point us to a competence-based curriculum, so that then we are bringing up well-rounded individuals, men and women, we will bequeath this society to as we move along. Because we did not answer that question honestly and effectively at independence. Because what was our education for? Was it for producing black officers so that people who are crazy about being called sir and madam, that's what we were doing for Afande. Yes sir, all throughout. That's what our education was for. Or it was an education for preparing ourselves to take up the development of our country. Now we know, now we have learned, now we have experienced these challenges we've had before. And I can tell you for a fact, having sat at Jogo House for the last 2 years as Cabinet Secretary for Education, my brothers and sisters, we have lived in denial for a long time. And we have also lived a lie for a long time. Now is the time to meet with the truth and engage with the truth, so that when we see those horrors we are seeing from the Kenyan School of Law and those horrors we are seeing from our teacher training institutions, let's face the truth as it is. A Commission for University Education is here. When we conducted an audit on universities in Kenya last year, it was depressing. Those of you who are not vice chancellors, you are not at our meeting. There is a university in Kenya which allows plagiarism by policy. The report is there, Professor Chacha is here. They say you can plagiarize as long as it does not exceed 30% of your thesis. I'm telling you, it's horrific how we have mismanaged ourselves. And I will say this again, I am not going to be necessarily popular on this point, but I hold this to be true and to be factual. We are one of the few countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and actually probably in the world, that has got no problems with the resources to invest in education. Our problem is not money. Our problem is mediocrity, corruption, incompetence, and theft. That's our problem. Our problem is all these people who are stealing around. Products of an education system that we created to produce people, bureaucrats. If you're a government minister, and I would like one day, when I'm not doing this job, to start talking about why we have failed in the public service. They tell you why something cannot happen. Every time you ask officers, why can't we do this? They tell you, first of all, the answer you get is, no. It is no, we have always done it this way. That's answer number one. Or answer number two, they spend time convincing you why you can't do it. Not to think creatively and innovatively and say, okay, this is my problem, I need to resolve it. What is our education for? Our education must be for problem solvers, not problem describers. Not people who describe the problem, who spend time whining and moaning. Our education must be for people who provide solutions. We want to solve things. That's why innovation is critical. We must think differently. Knowledge is versatile. It's available everywhere. And as we go along, our teachers who are not part of that thinking will fall by the wayside, because we are moving to a learner-centered learning environment where learners will access knowledge, they will access education, they might probably have more information by the time they walk into the classroom than the teacher, if the teacher is not working very hard. That's how we develop, that's how we move forward as a country and a society. So I think we have exciting times ahead as we move forward. I am not deluded. We will also have challenges, and they are going to be there. But that's fine. I cannot imagine a life without challenges. And someone told me if the mountain was smooth, you would not climb it. So it's fine. Let's move on. Let's deal with the issues that we have to deal with. Confront those challenges and solve those problems, because development is all about problem solving. And that's what our education is going to be for. Thank you, and God bless you.